So if you guys are a fan of sport, you will definitely be a fan of this panel. The panel has some great iconic names and brands up on stage today. And the topic that they're going to be exploring is the modern age of fandom in sport. And so it should come as no surprise to anyone that with technology and access, the role of fans in the lives of athletes, teams, and leagues is changing. And we talked about it in the back room. What they're going to do today is explore that exploration into fandom and how it looks different today than it did 10, 15 years ago. But before we jump in, let's introduce the esteemed panelists. First, Hall of Famer Brett Favre, big icon. Another icon we have on stage is David Levy, president of
I don't think I've ever been called an icon.
She's going to run out when she gets to me.
No, I am not going to run out. And then our third icon on the panel.
There you go.
Yes, there we go. Is Nick Bourne from Copa 90. And moderating this panel is the co-founder and CEO, Carlos Watson from Ozzy.
Hey guys, so we have a great conversation today, which we started in the back, and I wanted to start it actually by asking each of these three guys to explain to us how they became interested and involved in sports. And so, Brett, we know about the NFL career, but before the NFL career, how did you come to sports? Was it a given?
In some ways it was. My dad was a high school football coach in Mississippi for 30 years. He coached Summer League Baseball, which was called American Legion Baseball. Also in Mississippi, which my two brothers and I, we both played, or all three of us played for him, not only in football but in baseball. So as far back as I can remember, I had either baseball or football in my hand. I went to college if it were not for pro football, I would have been a teacher and a coach. So.
And who were your favorite teams growing up?
I was a diehard Cowboys fan.
Staubach or?
Yeah, I just love the Cowboys, and I also was a Saints fan. But we spent more time saying, "There's always next year," and we always said that at the start of the season. The existing year going on, it's like next year. But we always had Archie Manning. That was kind of our deal. So
another Mississippi native himself. Went to the wrong college though.
Right, Ole Miss.
Went to Ole Miss, not Southern Miss. David, how did you come to be interested in sports?
16 years of playing at Green Bay quarterback. No. I thought that was me.
The other icon.
The other icon. Sorry, I forgot which icon I was. I got interested in sports really growing up. I played hockey for 17 years, but from a professional basis, I've been working for Turner for 30 years, and Ted, who, if you know him or work with him or be a part of him, he's an amazing individual, a visionary, and he understood about content very early in this business and realized that sports content not only sucked up a lot of airtime and people's audience viewing habits, but also worked very well in the advertising business as well as the distribution business. So he bought the Atlanta Braves, he bought the Atlanta Hawks, and when he was starting to launch new networks like TNT back in 1990, he worked out a deal, and I was involved in the process of launching TNT with the NFL, having the first NFL cable package. And there was 9 Sunday night football games, and we built TNT on the back of the NFL, and then started a sports division that had the Braves, the Hawks, the NFL, SEC college football, and some golf and NASCAR and a few other things. And then we started a sports division, and I led that division. So that's how I got involved.
And Nick, what about you? Or actually, I'm sorry, before we go on to Nick, David, your favorite teams growing up were?
Believe it or not, this is why I'm here. Green Bay Packers was one of my favorite football teams, and then I was a Knick, Ranger, and Met fan.
Interesting. So you had some good news in there and some.
Yeah, it was a long, hard time, as Brett and I were talking in the back room. I didn't get really to have a successful Green Bay Packer run until Brett came and started quarterbacking for the team.
Love it. And Nick, you're from London originally. How did you become interested and involved in sports?
So being from England and from London, football is it's in the wallpaper. It's in in the roads, it's in the walls, it's everywhere. Like it's growing up as a kid, it is what you talk about in the playground. So there's no sort of option on it coming from England. In terms of
And you mean the Packers and the Saints and the Cowboys?
Absolutely. we specifically refer to it as soccer growing up the entire day. But so no, I work with Copper 90, and Copper has been going about sort of 4 years or so, and as we were just sort of mentioning in the back there, I guess our sort of biggest point of difference is we have built one of the sort of biggest football, soccer media businesses without any rights in it. We don't show any games, we don't rip any rights, we don't do any of those sorts of pieces. And to sort of start off on that journey was a big punt, but it worked. And what we found, and I guess sort of relevant to this panel as well, is we've been able to sort of unlock a global audience of young football and soccer fans and tell stories outside of the 90 minutes in a compelling and engaging way on every platform. And they watch it for a long period of time across all those devices.
Absolutely fanatic. Brett, how have fans changed in the 20 years since you first came in the league with Atlanta?
Again, we talked about this in the back. I think the volume of information, the fact that it's instantaneous, it's global. As David said, he grew up in New York, but he never was able to watch a Packers game. You think about that, and you go, if you can't watch a Packers game in New York, it makes sense in southern Mississippi that you may get one game. But today, the younger generation goes, what do you mean? We can watch whatever we want. We can watch it on TV, we can watch it on a mobile device, we can watch it on an iPad, maybe even a watch. So I think fans, it's hard to say. I don't know the statistics, but I do believe that they're more up close and more personal with the athlete, with their team, and the crossover, I think we will see grow, I think, with soccer. And people over here with American football. And so I just think that, I don't know if the fan is more rabid than they were before. I just think they're maybe more informed.
I would think, and David, you might weigh in on this too, I would think the fact that, as Brett's saying, that you not only have more coverage of it, but you also have more access to the players. I would think that that's making fans more rabid, or do you see something different?
No, I think access is the key word. I mean, access and authentic. I think those are the key words that if you're an athlete, you're a team, you're a broadcaster, you need to make sure that you stay authentic to what the fans really, because now they have so much access and knowledge and information that if you're not, it'll actually be a negative. And the access is what they keep wanting more and more of. I mean, the microphones that are on, the mics that are done in baseball and football, the NBA, you're inside the huddle. And so this is what the next generation of fans are growing up with. And if it's not there, I mean, one of the leagues that I think have done a poor job, but we're working with right now, is Major League Baseball. They aren't liking the players like they are in the NBA and the NFL and things of that nature. So baseball is having a struggle finding that next generation of fans. In fact, statistics, as Pep was talking about, it's aging up. I mean, the average baseball fan on television now is 55 years old, right? And that's not going to be great for that next generation. So they have to start thinking about how they give access to the players. And you can name probably, because of the gaming industry, right? Everybody plays Madden and all these other games. You can name all the people. But people have a hard time naming the stars on baseball teams on other markets. I have no problem naming stars of NFL players or NBA players. Even Premier Soccer, which I did not grow up with. I start knowing most of the teams' names now, majority of the players, and it's just a different lifestyle that we live in now.
Nick, how important is video game and the whole gaming industry to the growth of your business?
I guess sort of video gaming is a massive entry point for young audiences into soccer. And we were talking about how if it weren't for FIFA, if it weren't for Madden, I think having a really strong video game is a great way to sort of acquire younger fans within there. I think also what shouldn't be overlooked there as well, is the nature of sports is that you get that sort of primal instinct when you actually go and watch a live game, and that I think those are the memories that stay with you for life, and that's still actually a key part of it. In terms of our business and sort of video gaming within it, it's all we do is football. So football is the base to everything, and then we use all of the different adjacencies around that to tell stories. So gaming is an adjacency to football, also travel, sort of culture, fan culture, all of those other pieces are where we tell stories to. So video gaming is important, but we also know that we're not trying to just tell video gaming stories, because there's a lot of other people who do that.
David, you were telling me earlier that you were shocked a couple of years ago to learn that fandom has taken on a whole new level, and that your son is responsible for your new insight. Tell us about the next stage.
Well,
of fandom.
that was pertaining to esport. So, show of hands, everybody know what esport is? Not a lot. So, esport, believe it or not, is other people watching other people play games. Video games, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, GTT, Dogma, whatever, all of them. So I went into my son's room 2 years ago, and I knocked on his door, he didn't answer. And of course I knocked on again, didn't answer. I walked in and he had his headphones on his computer, and I peeked in thinking he may be watching something else. And all excited about it, but of course it wasn't that. But I said, Jake, what are you doing? He's like, what do you mean? First of all, he startled, what do you mean? He goes, I'm watching my buddies play video games. I'm like, you're watching other people play video games? He goes, yeah. He goes, Dad, you played hockey. You go to hockey games. You watch the greatest people in the world play the sport you love. I'm watching the greatest people in the world play the sport that I like. And I said, sport? And he goes, yeah. And so I said, okay, and I sat in his room for an hour, let him do his, his thing, and I just sat behind him, and I looked at how his reaction, he was actually communicating socially with his friends online, watching the video, and then reacting like with something amazing. He'd step back and go, wow, and go back in, and I stood there for an hour, watched it, went back into my office the next day, had my team give me a full analysis of what this sport is, what is it, who does it. And you can't imagine, there are 50 million people in the United States, not the world. There's over 400 million people around the world playing esport. And we just started a league at Turner. It's 4 weeks in. It's on TBS on 10 o'clock on Friday nights. And so we thought it was a good night to try it. We're only 4 weeks in. The game is Counter-Strike. We have they're ranked teams around the world, you should know that, by each game. So just because you're great in Counter-Strike doesn't mean you're great in League of Legends. And so that's an interesting situation. So we have the best Counter-Strike teams ranked in the world. So we have the top 25, we have 16 of them playing for a $1.2 million purse. And it's real money. People are buying esport teams now for anywhere from $1 million to $50 million. You can buy an esport team for $50 million. There are people like Shaquille O'Neal who owns a team, Rick Fox who owns the team, Mark Cuban owns a team. And so there are real people with real investments that are buying into this sport right now. And we're excited from a company standpoint to be a part of it.
What is crazy is that you called it a sport. that you got converted into that too.
And athletes.
Right. That's great. Brett, LaDainian Tomlinson, the former NFL MVP, you probably know him, running back, once told me that one of the most surprising things about playing in the league when it came to fans is that he occasionally found himself in bars and other places with fans, particularly men, who would kind of challenge him a little bit physically. What are the craziest things that happened to you as you played in different cities, Atlanta, Green Bay, New York, Minneapolis? What's the craziest things, both positive and negative, that happened to you?
I think when I think back to, of course, I played with Minnesota. I also played with Green Bay. Very, very big rivalry. 3.5 hours apart. But I personally was not there to witness this, but I thought what really kind of is the best example I can give of this fan rivalry, and I know Chicago and Green Bay is huge as well. But there were two brothers that were at a bar right on the Minnesota-Wisconsin line, somewhere around the cross, I think, and they got into an argument over Vikings-Packers, and one doused the other with alcohol and set him on fire over this rivalry. And I thought, I don't want to go in that bar, first of all, because I'm on both sides of the fence.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've had people say, "Oh, you divided our household," because now we're half Minnesota, half Green Bay, and as crazy as it is, that's what makes it so special.
Why do you think people feel so strong? My dad grew up a Cleveland Browns fan. We love Cleveland the way it sounds like. We weren't dousing anybody, but why do you? What causes that love? Do you think?
Well, I think like in Green Bay's case, first of all, if you look at today's game, LA's trying to fill the team, obviously. I don't know how many million people live there, but way more than the state of Wisconsin combined. And to think that Green Bay has a 45-year, maybe even longer now, a 45-year waiting list to get a season ticket, and that these tickets are willed to their kids and grandkids, when a city of millions and millions of people struggle to fill the seats. I think it says a lot about Wisconsin, and Green Bay is different. It's a unique, special place. But not everybody who grows up there is a Packers fan, but those I can probably count on one or two hands. That's your team. There's rich tradition and history there, and I've had so many people I've run into, not only here but in other places. I'm a stockholder. I'm a part owner. They take pride in that, and Cleveland is one of those places that there's a lot of great players in history that go back many years, and there are places that are not. They're up and coming franchises that are still trying to build that, but I think the Yankees and the Packers and the Bears, to me, when you think of just rich and historical tradition and players, those three come to mind.
Nick, talk about the fact that one of the biggest changes in my mind in sports here in the States, and you have to tell me if it's true in Europe too, more female fans. I feel like fantasy sports and a bunch of other things have led to a broadening of sports, and the way that I see it most noticeably is with female fans. Is the same true with European football?
Definitely. I think the female audience around soccer is really sort of growing at quite a rate, and also actually the straight up the women's game as well, in terms of interest around that, engagement around that too. And I think also it's something that we spend a lot of time working on because it's kind of the nature of the game for female audience. This obviously always sounds a bit weird when you've got three guys sort of knocking on a panel talking about what women think about a game, but the nature of the experience is much more around sort of performance, actually sort of playing the game, getting better, improving through it, and actually how it unites a community rather than necessarily divides it. And those are really interesting sort of themes, and a great platform effectively to engage an audience through. So female audiences in soccer are sort of growing at a rate, but also actually the players of it. It's the most popular sport for 15-year-old girls in the UK is soccer.
David, how has the growth of female fans changed your business, if at all? Or has it changed your business at all?
Well, it changes a lot of people's businesses, because it changes. I mean, we used to go to football stadiums back when, and there was nothing even to be sold to women, right? And now you go to stadiums and there's men, women's, kids, all different types of sizes of clothing. So your clothing business, your sales business, your television ratings, right? If I'm only skewing one way, which is male, and not including the other audience base, female, well, I'm losing half the audience, right? So if I can build up the female base as much as I can, the male base, my adults 18 to 49, my adults 25 to 54 grow as well. And I really believe this female-male thing is really about access again. There's so much more opportunities, whether you're male or female, to ask questions, to look up something, to understand, to be, to become a fan of a player because you follow him on Twitter or you use him on Snapchat or Instagram or Vine. I mean, this is all about access and how the players are using this new technology, social media, to embrace their fans and their fan base, and they're not looking male or female either. So I think they can make their own choices.
Brett, what do you think about that? Because Twitter wasn't around when you first started in the league, and you probably see a lot of guys both build up their fan bases, but probably also get in trouble by being so available and so accessible on Twitter. What do you think about the use of social media?
Well, I think it's great, but I
players?
think, and I just remember my coach was talking about don't discuss your contract via Twitter, Facebook, any of those, which makes perfect. You shouldn't discuss your contract and present situation because it does no good within the organization. So I think in that regard, it's not good, because you're trying to sway everyone else to your side when really the dialogue should be between you and the organization. But I think the interaction with fans is great. I think it has changed the game. I think it has changed the fan base and just the global network in general. But when you talk about it in regards to contracts and trying to elevate yourself to a different position or a different team or whatever, I don't think that there's any benefit to that.
And what about the difference these days with the fans between, we just saw the NBA playoffs end, we just saw a 7-game series in the finals, Cleveland winning dramatically, coming back. Are the fans in basketball or football, do you think, more rabid? Who's got the more rabid fans
We
these days?
sort of talked about that back earlier, and I think David and Nick could probably answer that better. But obviously, at least in the States, the NFL dominates just from a total number of fans. Does that make them more rabid? I don't know that. I think that they're better suited.
I would say, listen, I mean, even we just talked about it, Manchester United, sometimes we dominate a city, let alone just a rabid fan base. And so I think fans are attached to who they love and who they're a part of, and they're as Brett said, do NFL ratings go higher on television than NBA ratings? Yes, but it doesn't mean their fans are any more rabid than that. So if you're loyal to a team, you're loyal to a team and you follow a team. The NFL just has fantasy football and things like that people are much more in tune to. So when ratings come into play, and I have a fantasy team, I'm more interested in the Jacksonville Houston game, when normally I would never watch that game, but I may have a player on that team. There's not that many fantasy leagues for the NBA and some other sports, so you don't get that casual fan that comes, you don't get that the fan that has some kind of fantasy that's interested in games that normally wouldn't be interested in.
Nick, there have been controversies in all the different sports, betting controversies, injury controversies. Recently in American football, you've had controversies over racism in all kinds of sports, but including obviously European football recently. Did any of those that you've seen dampen fan enthusiasm? Do you see any of those? Even things like strikes. I don't know if you guys have had strikes in European football, but we've seen strikes in American football,
Sure.
baseball, basketball. Have you seen anything that is dampening the enthusiasm? We're talking today all about the things that are growing enthusiasm, but do you see anything that's dampening enthusiasm these days?
I think it's a really good question. You can look at there's been a lot of unrest in France during the current football tournament, and some English fans have not covered themselves in glory. Same with Russia and other countries as well. I think, and it's something that is unfortunately a part of the game. But I think certainly what our audience feel about it is it unites the 99.9% who aren't like that against that. That fundamentally we see football as a passion point that is the first passion of 3.5 billion people, and it's that ability to connect people rather than divide people. And I think when those things happen, people come together sort of closer to say that doesn't represent us.
This is actually a question for Brett. I'm interested to see how concussions may change NFL quality of the game, and the athletes of the next generation playing or not playing? Where do you think that could affect the sport?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I've been asked numerous times where I stand on concussions. And had I had a son, would I be as eager to let him play or supportive in him playing football as I was? And by no means would I ever knock football, but I think what has been revealed with concussions, there's still a long ways to go because they don't know a great deal, but they do know that they're not good. And I think we all know what for the most part, a concussion is. You see a boxer get hit, he's knocked out, and when he tries to get up, he falls back down, he staggers. Same could be said for football, although you don't see that as much because there's so much going on, but that's an obvious concussion. Those are really not the problem. It's the ones that you don't see. And what I mean by that is I can't tell you how many times in my 20 years, I can't even count, couldn't even begin to put a number on it, the times that I was hit, fell to the ground. Sometimes it was maybe it was a really good hit. Sometimes it was something that you wouldn't even think twice about. But I saw, if you will, stars, light bulbs flashing, ringing in the ears, just a sudden headache. But yet I chose to keep playing. And again, I chose to keep playing. And so the effect of those over and over again, it's not, when you think about boxing, I always use this example, and I was never a boxer, but it's not the knockout blows that take the effect on a long-term boxer. It's the jabs, boom, boom. Because if he had, every time you box, if you get knocked out cold, you're not going to be boxing long. No one wants you to box, and your health is going to decline very quickly. But so I don't think, I guess my point is those, if you want to call them minor concussions that no one can see or would know, if those are concussions, and I think that's where the gray line is right now, is that what really is a concussion? Does it stop? Yeah, we know what certainly is a concussion. How do we eliminate that? Because we're finding that women's or girls soccer, there are a lot of concussions just and I don't want to speak for you, but if girls are banging the ball with their head and they're getting concussions, what are 350-pound guys getting when they bang every time they hit? So, I don't know where it's going to go. I think what probably should be done would never be done, and that's eliminate tackling or try to eliminate physical confrontation. Well, then it's not football. Well, who wants to watch it?
Brett, what do you think when you see
Tag football?
When you see Junior Seau, when you even see Ali, when you see Dave Dullerson, when you see a lot of the guys that you either admired or actually played with and knew, what goes through your mind?
There is some fear. There is some fear. I saw the movie Concussion, and I have to admit, when I left out, I was somewhat, I don't want to say surprised, but almost angry that we're dealing with people's lives here, and that a lot of stuff has not been revealed. And again, by no means am I knocking football. It's been great. I enjoyed my 20 years. It remains to be seen what toll it takes on me physically. But again, I chose to play. But keeping things from players still, and I don't know exactly what that is. It's somewhat scary. Again, makes me somewhat angry. And a guy like Junior Seau, I played against him for 15 years. What a tremendous player. And I thought if someone ever told me that he may kill himself, I'd say he'd be the last person to kill himself, because he loved life. And you never know what's going, but he just loved doing what he was doing. I could just picture him washing his car and going crazy, and and so it's really a scary thought.
David, what do you think in terms of things that do you think concussions could reduce the amount of fan interest? Do you think it could push people away?
Listen, I think the quality of the game, and I think Brett said it very well. What can they do? Listen, we know it's bad. We just don't know how bad and how to react to it, right? So the question is, and Brett didn't answer it, but do you let your son play the game? Now, there's always going to be somebody that says yes because it's a way to get out of where they live or family or money or whatever the case may be. So I think the game of football will always be there in some way, shape, or form. It's just the question of the quality. Is the best player, the best athlete in school, no matter how tall he is, he could be 5'8", is going to play football or basketball. They're not going to play baseball. They're not going to play this soccer or whatever. Is because they think they can get the most money. Okay, this is America now, not international, U.S. They think they can make the most money getting into a football situation or an NBA, right? Because baseball, what happens? They have to go to the minor leagues. They got to stay in the minor leagues for what, 6 years, making no money, right? And so it's very hard to go up through the system in baseball. And certainly hockey is not as paid as well, and so, whether you're Hispanic or African American, don't have that much access to those type of equipment and things of that nature. So it's bad. It's bad. Will that change? Will now, a father or a mother say, you know what, maybe you should play baseball, or maybe you should play another sport. And so, what happens to the best athlete in school, and what sports do they play, is really what I don't have the answer for. And will that change over time? The quality of the game that Brett played in when he played.
We're going to do, how many of you guys watch when SportsCenter does the Cold Hard Six-Pack question? You guys watch it? All right, we're going to call this the Turner Copa version of that. We're going to ask Brett a few good quick questions. So Brett, we're going to ask you a few quick questions here, then we're going to open up the whole thing. Best player you ever played against in your career?
I happened to play against him and that was Reggie White.
Reggie White, Minister of Defense.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Best teammate you ever had?
Well, again, Reggie White. I played with just an overall great, just everything you ask for in a player. In leadership, it would be Reggie White, but I played with some wonderful players.
In the end, the best player you ever knew who didn't make it? Who you either knew in high school, you knew in college, but you see that's ESPN 30 for 30 where they did the best that never was about Marcus Dupree?
I was just going to say Marcus Dupree was one of those that, he got injured.
Yep.
But his path was, at one time when we went to Oklahoma, this guy's incredible. He was way ahead of his time. It was sort of like Bo Jackson. Hurt his knee, went to USFL, tried to make a comeback, but now he's back in Mississippi. So he would be one of those players, yeah, certainly.
Which basketball, baseball, soccer, tennis players could have played in the NFL?
I talking to LeBron last year at the ESPYs, I'm like, how can anyone stop this guy? I mean, but yet, I don't say they stop him, but they hold him in check sometimes. But what a physical-looking guy!
You think he could?
I think he'd been a good tight end. I think he would have. I definitely would have drafted him.
Yeah.
Whether he ever played football, if I was the GM, I'm going to draft LeBron. He's like, I never played tight end. That's how I will work on it.
Steph Curry, could he have made it in the NFL?
I would not bet against him. That guy's.
You would not bet against him.
That he wouldn't make it. I mean, he's little, but it's kind of like Wes Welker and some of the Edelman. These little slot guys. You got to hit them. You got to be able to hit them first.
Best three quarterbacks of all time, and feel free to throw Favre into the conversation.
I'm never that eager to throw me in the conversation.
I will.
But Brady. Well, first is Montana, and every time I see Joe, I tell him that he's probably like, this guy's such a, But Montana was the smoothest. What a great quarterback. Not to mention he won a lot of Super Bowls. Brady, he's won a lot, he's lost a lot, but the fact that he's been there a ton, incredible quarterback. Peyton is right up there, and I'm always a little more biased to my generation, but the generation that didn't throw it very much, Bart Starr. And of course, we both are biased to that, but when it comes to leadership and winning, there's none better than Bart Starr.
Final question. Of the young quarterbacks today, you got a lot to choose from. You're the GM of the team, you're the owner of the team. Who are you going to choose to be your quarterback for the next 2 seasons?
The next 2 seasons, if my team needs to certainly be carried by the quarterback with his legs and his arm, it would be Aaron Rodgers. I think his ability to make plays when plays are not there, I value as very important because that's the way I made my living. If we're in an offense that is very good up front and we're able to protect and the quarterback does not have to run, I'm with Tom Brady.
Interesting. So you left Cam Newton out of it. You left Russell Wilson out of it. You left Luck out of it.
Well, I mean, you didn't ask me for 6.
Yeah, you did say the best. You said, give me one guy.
Yeah.
All right, you paid attention. All right, guys, we're going to open it up. A couple questions for Nick, for David, for Brett. Who's first? Who's got a question for us?
So from a player perspective, a media owner perspective, a fan perspective, to be provocative, how far away are we from the Hunger Games being real, where media doesn't care about the player and the fans are like collateral damage because we're still funneling money into the NFL, no matter how much we all saw in concussion CT. We're still watching, we're still making more money, and advertisers are still pushing it in there. Fans are still taking more and more time away from their productivity at work, whether it's through fantasy or social, whatever it is, moving there. And there's plenty of Hollywood movies that depict it from your each 3 perspectives. How real is that? How long away is it?
All right, great question, interesting question. I mean, first of all, the first thing I would think about is how far are we away from someone actually dying on the field, right? And in boxing, we've seen it. So it's not, and I try to go back and say, have we ever seen that? I think at some point, UFC, you might see somebody actually die in the ring. So that's concerning to a broadcaster because that's not what we're trying to project out on the screen and give our fan base and so forth. But you got to remember something. I'm also protecting my brand, right? TNT is a brand, TBS is a brand, CNN is a brand, and so what content I put on that broadcast is important to me. And so we don't have the UFC on our network. We don't have certain programming because we don't believe it fits the brand that we have. And so from my perspective, there may be a Hunger Games channel that eventually happens, and that might be the ultimate blah, blah, blah channel. And that might work perfect for the Hunger Games channel, right? But I don't think it'll end up on people's brands that have built their brands on certain, audiences come to, whether it's, Copa 90 or go to they expect what they want when they turn the channel on or go on a mobile device, because my brands are obviously multi-channel. Yeah. When they come to Bleacher Report, they expect a certain type of content, and that's still important to me. So from my perspective, it may happen, but it won't probably be happening on the brands that I manage.
I think also to that point, particularly in football, fans are able to come together and communicate when they're not happy with sort of football's a prime example of sort of, is there a more overtly sort of commercialized sport? I mean, the NFL is hugely commercialized. You look at the sort of the circus around the Super Bowl, etc., things like that. But certainly in the UK, fans are sort of reacting against ticket prices, so affordability is a big issue for young fans not actually able to go and see the game. And likewise, when you see in the UK alone, Sky and BT Sport are paying £15 million per game, is what they paid for 15 million pounds per game. And it's like, sort of,
That's a lot, right?
That is a lot of money, yeah. And that's for everyone, including the bad ones. So that sort of distance between the sort of the commercial side and actually what the fans want in there is a cause for concern for the sport. But it's also sort of personally speaking as well, that is a great thing for us because we sort of champion the fans, and that is a great avenue that we explore.
Guys, unfortunately, we only have time for one more question. Who's got one last question to set us off?
Hey, Brett, do you think, the difference between like the English Premiership or just soccer in general, do you think we'll ever see a brand logo on an NFL jersey?
Absolutely. I certainly believe that. When? I have no idea. That's not my expertise. But you know, I'm just thinking about what we're talking about, and you know, the old what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know, what's more important, the player, the fan, the advertising? Where does this all, you know, the protection of the player or the ad, the commercial? You know, we kind of joked back before we walked out here that Super Bowl week, everyone's asking what this week's sort of like, and it's a little bit like the Super Bowl without the game. But didn't Super Bowl week sort of like that anyway? You know, with that, oh, by the way, we have a game tonight. You know, like, oh, you know, I've had more chili and beer. You know, I've had enough. You know, it's so secondary, and I think that's where when I think of the games or games, where that's what's driving everything is, you know, 15 million pounds. I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds like a lot. You know, but it's only going to go up here in the States, everywhere. So yes, I do believe that. I mean, much like NASCAR, you know, I definitely believe that.
Guys, a big hand for Nick, for David, for Brett. Big hand. And we will leave it there.